Hello and welcome to season 3, episode 5. Are we already at episode 5 of Quaint and Cozy KC? I am your host, Lainey Renee, and today I am just here to say welcome back to myself. The last time I posted a podcast, it was March 10th, and it is now, as I record this, March 25th. And so it's been a little bit, it's been a while, but in my defense, I had the Snake Saturday Parade. And so, if you're from the Kansas City area, you're listening in from the Kansas City area, you know that that is the Saturday, traditionally the Saturday before St. Patrick's Day, they do the Snakes Parade. And so I actually went down there because I'm in the Northland and met up with some friends. I Ubered down there early. We went to a place called Paul and Jack's, which is like this really cool bar, neighborhood bar. They also do, they have bands come in, and sometimes when it's warmer outside, they're outside in the courtyard. Other times they're inside. I've kind of seen concerts for both, but I mean, I love the vibe there. And what I really appreciated, and again, I'll go into this more on my Aunt Lainey's Kitchen podcast because that's my food podcast. What I really appreciated about that is the fact that they were like, they opened up at 8. They were like, hey, we are open from 8 to 5, and here's a limited menu that you have. You're going to have to pay in, cash is preferred, like this whole thing to keep the line moving. So I went down there and I was able to save some seats. And at first I thought, I was only gonna get like 6 people early. Y'all, my friends showed up and showed out. Like by the time 9:15 came around, I think there's like 12 of us. And so as it kind of went on, we were able to kind of get more tables and all that other good stuff. But it was fun, but it was cold and breezy. And I was going back and forth. Do I want to go and see the parade? Because it was kind of cold outside. But I'm like, no, I'm gonna go out there and see the parade. And so I went out there and I watched the parade for about 30 minutes. I went on live on my personal Facebook page and kind of captured about 30 minutes of it. And that wind started it almost took me out. And then finally, my eyes were watering and I had like, I was dressed in layers, everything. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have to call it. I'm gonna have to call it a day here. So I ended up going back in, hanging out with my friends for a few more hours, and then taking an Uber home. Which again, I'm glad I did that. I just walked on to the Screenland Theater, and I took an Uber out. And again, that's what you got to do, right? Because parking was going to be a nightmare. I didn't want to be walking really far in the cold. If it was like 40 degrees, and then I think it warmed up to 50s, but it was cold and it was windy. I think if it had started off as like a 60, 65-degree day, well, first of all, there would have been way more people out there, and that would have been its own challenge. But second of all, I would have probably went ahead and walked a couple miles. I wouldn't have minded. But gonna come and having that wind slap me in the face, that was like, you know what? I might have been born in Minnesota. I might have lived in Minnesota for 6 years after college, but I'm not a Minnesotan, okay? My body was like, no, girl, no. And so I had a really great time, had some really, good bar food, and just had fun, like catching up with friends. So that's kind of like where I've kind of been at, but also what I've been doing is I have been every weekend hitting up a new spot in the Kansas City metro area. And so let's kind of start off with where I went a few weeks ago, and that was I was in Atchison, Kansas. And so I, went there on I believe that was like, I went there like kind of like the following a week or I'm sorry, the week before. And so I saw so many cool things in Atchison and I had not been since I was a kid. So I was all excited. And so one of the things I'm doing, and if you've been listening to my program for the past couple of years, you know that I love farmers markets and I love museums. And so because it's not farmers market season, well, there are some farmers markets around the city that are doing kind of winter farmers markets where they're doing it once a month, but I haven't really been going to those because I've been focusing on the museums right now. Because once farmers market season hits, I'm off like a light. And so, um, or a shot, I guess. But so I started off at the Amelia Earhart Birthplace Museum. Now, Amelia Earhart has got a lot of, history in Atchison. And and she's all over and again, I admire her for her skill and her skill and her determination. And she was born in like Atchison, Kansas. So in that kind of that area. And so, this is like her childhood home. that they're calling it like the Birthplace Museum. And and it's located in downtown Atchison. And it looks like a really cool, to me, when I saw it, I saw the grounds. It reminded me of a grandma's house. And it was the kind of grandma that you went and there was rooms upstairs and there was just like as I walked in, and even though, she didn't have grandkids or anything like that, but I just got that immediate like scent of home. It's got that kind of vibe to it. And so you can park on the street. There was a lot of parking on the street. But again, I went on a Saturday morning. That might be a little bit different if you're going during the weekdays. If there's, when school's in session, there might be a lot of tours, that kind of thing. But it was great. I went on a self-guided tour, which I prefer to do. Um, and so I just kind of walked through, and they give you a map, and you can kind of see like, and they're like, okay, they mark something one, two, three, and it's got these different sections that you go to. So that was kind of cool. And so I was able to kind of do it in an orderly fashion. And there's just so much history. And if you want kind of more to see more pictures, I always post my pictures on my Quaint and Cozy KC Facebook page in an album. So I've got an album and I think I went ahead and consolidated it. So it's the Atchison, Kansas. And that's what some of the first pictures in this album are of the museum, the birthplace. And, they were really helpful. Like the staff there were really knowledgeable about Amelia Earhart, and they were talking to me a little bit. And like, you go in there and you feel the history. There's stained glass windows, and I love a good stained glass window. Also, there's like some nice light fixtures and just some really cool, like even the wallpaper gave like this cozy grandma, house kind of feel. And you could almost, to me, I could almost smell the eggs and hear kind of like, the chatter, all that, the fun stuff of going to my grandma's house. And it's just, again, it's beautiful. There are bluffs, like you can kind of look over, you can kind of take pictures, I should say. Um, you can kind of take pictures of like and again, when I see bluffs, don't think like a mountain bluff, but there's like definitely like a steep thing going on there. And pictures of the bridge and picture there's great scenic things. I did capture like a picture or two on my Quaint and Cozy album on my Quaint and Cozy KC Facebook page. And then I went on because again, Amelia Earhart, she had her birthplace, but then there's another museum there, and it's the Amelia Earhart Hangar Museum, and it's like at an airport. It's kind of cool. And so I went in there, and that's a little bit more of a traditional museum. Like they had like the exhibits, like they had like an airplane in there, and then they had like different spots where when you walk in there, they did like this kind of AI kind of show, this kind of hologram kind of thing show, and it was kind of cool. And listening to the story like as told by the hologram, and then kind of walking in, there's just different spots where there you can stand and watch something, like a little presentation play, like 5, 6 minutes. So I appreciated that. They had a super cute gift shop, as did the other, the Birthplace Museum. Great gift shops there. And so I walked around. Now, I will say that this museum took me a little bit longer. It took me about 40 minutes, 30, 40 minutes to really walk through and see everything. Whereas the other museum, like it took longer because I was going slow and like looking at every little piece because it was a house situation. But this museum is actually, the Hanger Museum is bigger. So the walk, like the 30, 40 minutes was just getting around the whole thing because you're just kind of like walking around like in a circle. And so yeah, it was great. And I took some pictures of the exhibits. Now, when it comes to exhibits, I don't want to take pictures of everything because some people use that as a reason why, like, oh, I can't go. I've seen everything. So anytime if you see a museum, like anything where I'm going to a place like that in my albums, I'm going to give you a glimpse, right? So that you can actually go and enjoy it for yourself in person and talk to the staff people and get more knowledge. So a lot of times I'll take pictures of certain things, but I don't take pictures of everything because again, a glimpse is all you kind of need. And then I also took pictures of on the street because it's got like a nice, like the hangar area. I took pictures outside too because they had like a statue up. At the first museum I went to, the birthplace, there was like brick. It was like the road was paved with brick. It was just a cute little neighborhood, very cute. And so then that was a lot of fun. And so then I went back into downtown Atchison because that's where the first museum was kind of in that area. And I went to like Veterans Memorial Park because I was hungry and there was a place called Trotters on the River. And so I went there for kind of like a quick bite to eat. And and again, I'll probably review that more in my Aunt Lanie's kitchen. But it had like a nice vibe in there and I love the architecture. It just reminded me of one of those vacation places, like those vacation, like when if you're on the island. I've never been to Florida, but it reminded me of some of those places I would see in California, like in the beach towns, a place like that, or even Rhode Island, like a beach town kind of vibe to it. But obviously, it's a river. It's like more of a river situation, but it was kind of like that, where it's like you're parked, you're walking someplace, like, oh, hey, we're hungry. You walk in there, and it was great. I felt like I was on vacation, and I love those kinds of restaurants because they give you and cafes that give you that experience. You feel you forget. I forgot I was in Atchison, Kansas. Um, so yeah, and it was kind of like a K-State bar. So again, I went to K-State for a couple years, so I'm all about it. It's a very friendly place, a very neighborhood kind of place. And so after that, I went to Benedictine College. Now, I do try, if I have time and I know there's a college in the area, I do try to kind of go to the college campus as I'm able to, because some of the campuses, they're gated and whatever. But I what I did was is I went ahead and I kind of like just parked. I took a couple pictures and then I kind of like parked on the street and kind of went on the campus a little bit. Just took some pictures of the buildings because the architecture, because I love architecture. I love the architecture. I took pictures of the church, like the church things, and then the college buildings. I took a picture of that and the Benedictine sign. And I really loved it. I wish I would have had more time, but again, I always have to remind myself that these trips, these local trips especially, it's a glimpse. Because if you're in this area or you want to travel to this area, I want to intrigue you, not because anyone's paying me to do it, but just in general, like to really appreciate if you're a local, the local architecture we have here. And if you're not a local and you're someone that might be here for business or you're visiting family and you're not familiar, there are some really cool little cute places here. I know sometimes Kansas City, Missouri, you're not thinking, you're like, oh, Kansas City is cool. They have the Chiefs, they have the Royals, they have, Sporting KC, they have all these other uh sports teams and whatever, and the barbecue and just really cool things like that. And but we also have these cute little towns and to kind of and also we have the Kansas City Current. I wanted to make sure I did not forget them because shout out to them. They are doing so well. But we've got these really cool kind of places here. So I always want people to kind of realize that, especially since I know a lot of people are sticking closer to home these days. Okay, so then after, being in after going to the Benedictine College, I really went, it's the heart of downtown, and I ran into this cute bookstore. I mean, there's all these thrift stores and they're cute little, restaurants and shops and all that stuff. But I ran into this bookstore and I was like, "Oh my gosh." It was super cute. I'm trying to make sure I'm pulling up the picture now because I want to make sure that I think it's Bargain Books and More, and I ended up getting a couple of I ended up getting a couple like books there, like a couple of cookbooks, of course, there. And they had these specials like two for $6. And they had these and they kind of packaged the books. So it's like two books like for $6. And you saw what they were. It wasn't like a blind date book situation, but they were tied in a ribbon, a nice little parcel. And I thought, what a nice way to kind of gift things. And then as I was walking and taking pictures, I ran into this elderly couple and they were so sweet. They're like, "Oh, you're taking pictures. Are you a tourist?" I'm like, "I kind of am." And then I kind of told them, I was from the Kansas City area, and then I told them, my blog, Quaint and Cozy KC, what I'm trying to do. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's so important." Because they were people that had actually left and come back. Obviously, like they did that like back in the 80s, they came back. But it was, and they were all excited and proud and all that because again we've got great local architecture and some great things to do. So and they were telling me about more places that the next time I wrote them down, but I don't know them by heart. But the next time I come by, because I will be returning to Atchison, because I feel like there's other places that I can go to, but I'm definitely putting it on my list for like quaint and cozy experiences. And it's about an hour away from me, but I felt like this is the kind of place you would go to. You kind of get in your car and like, leave your house at like 9 or so, 10 or so. So you get in there in time for lunch, go, grab a lunch, kind of walk around a little bit downtown, go to Benedictine College. There's some other tourist sites that I didn't get to everything. And that's one thing I've had to doing these kind of adventures. I have to remind myself, hey, you're only here for like a certain amount of hours. You're not here for like a whole weekend. You're not here for a whole week exploring everything. Like you have a finite amount of time, and a lot of people that are going to kind of be following you and whatever, they're day trippers too. They're daycation people too. So, kind of honor that a little bit by giving them kind of some easy things for them to pop in and do, see if they like the vibe. And then, they'll come back and do something, again. So that was Atchison, and that was so much fun. I had a lot of fun in Atchison. But do you think that I was done, with Atchison? No, you guys. I went to Shawnee, Kansas. And, for Shawnee, Kansas, that is like, on the Johnson County, the Kansas side. And there was a museum that I'd been trying to go to for a while. And I would, because, again, I'm on this museum. It's not a kick, but it's like I want to visit museums. I want to visit the farmers markets. I've already been to the Shawnee Farmers Market. I think I went like a couple of years ago. And again, I will eventually come back again, but I'm trying to hit places I have not been to. But didn't get a chance to go to the Shawnee Town 1929 Museum. And so I did that. And oh my gosh, now what I wasn't expecting is that, so, in my mind I thought, oh, it's going to be like a kind of a big museum inside and a couple outbuildings. Well, it was the opposite. So, you go into the visitor center, you park because there was plenty of parking when I went because again, I got lucky. Usually there's school tours, but the Friday that I went, there was like not a school tour. And it was a little windy and whatever. It ended up raining that day, but so I went in there and I talked to the staff person was really nice and kind of directed me around. And so I started off with the inside exhibit. Like first there's like a film you watch. It's like maybe 5 minutes, 5, 10 minutes. So I watched that and then I started kind of looking around, taking a couple pictures, capturing a couple things. And then she showed me like out. So I went outside and again it was windy. So and it was the sky was darkening. So I knew I didn't have a ton of time. You know to kind of go through here. But I tried to go as fast as I could. I definitely will have to probably come back at some point when it's not windy and almost raining on me. But there are some really cool outbuildings. And this is the kind of place, if it were a perfect 75-degree day, I would have brought lunch and I would have eaten. They have like a gazebo, they've got picnics. So if I were bringing family or a date or something like that, I would definitely, bring like a picnic lunch and go and have a picnic out there and because it was nice. And I think when we were there a couple of people were kind of touring it for weddings because they have a chapel on the grounds. It was beautiful, like stained glass. I took pictures of that. You go to Quaint and Cozy KC on my Facebook page and I have a whole album of the Shawneetown 1929 Museum. Now, the reason why I didn't take pictures of downtown Shawnee is because I already think I have them posted because I went a couple years ago. And so again, like I said, I'm trying to do kind of new things whenever possible, and then I'll double back. But they had these different exhibits, the outbuildings, like they had a general store, they had like a gas station, they recreated that. They had like a funeral parlor, which was a little morbid, but again, trying to be realistic. They had these gorgeous antique desks. Oh, they were so gorgeous. And then they also had like this kind of like this ice stand. It was supposed to be like an ice stand. They had a garden, but again, the garden was not blooming because it was like March. And so the garden was not blooming, but I could tell like when it is going to be in bloom, it's going to be gorgeous. And then and I think that garden is the Kansas State Research and Extension Country Garden. And so then, and I was like, oh, okay. So then they had like an auto body shop and it had like, a car from that looks like the 1930s in there. And then they also had like it looked like some kind of they had the shop and then it looks like they had some kind of doctor's office as well. And then they had I don't know if it's a doctor's office. It was like maybe it's more of a barber shop. I think it was a barber shop. Like I'm looking through, I'm like, okay, I think that was more of a barber shop. And then they had like a typewriter like repair shop, which was kind of cool. And of course, then they had like a farmhouse. Now, the farmhouse was not open, and I don't know if it's usually open to the public and it just wasn't open because there wasn't like a full-on tour. But it was like the outside, it had like rocking chairs on it, and then it was kind of like a homestead farm looking house. Then they had a barn that had another cool car in it, and then they had again, it kind of reminded us of our farmland that we have in Western Kansas, but then they had kind of like there were chickens. It was so I was like, oh my gosh, chickens! And I always get all geeked up about that. They had some chickens out there. And so, it's just something to kind of like check out. And if you go to my TikTok, I'm not sure if I actually posted, it looks like maybe, well, so there was somebody in the picture that was feeding him. So I'm not sure if I posted those pictures just because I didn't want to, capture someone at work. I wasn't trying to do all that. But they had a nice like trail, that like a nice gravel road that you can kind of walk on as well. And I really appreciated this. Now, this is the kind of place. I mean, it's just super quaint and cozy. This is definitely would be a nice little stroll. And again, it does get hot in the summer, so I can't imagine going there in the summer and sweating to death. But, it's something where if you can get there, when it's still like on those days, if you get there like kind of in the earlier in the morning, then you shouldn't have a problem. But it was just like a nice time. And I had to rush because I did not want to get rained on. And as soon as I got into my car, it started like raining. But if it was a perfect 75-degree day, I probably would have spent like 3 hours there, just slowly walking around, slowly just kind of absorbing it. But I did not get to do that. I think I was there for like maybe an hour and 15 minutes. And then I was like, booking it on out of there. But yeah, I definitely would recommend this. And remember, it does get hot in the summertime. So this would be something I would do around this time of year, or I would do it like in the early fall. I'm not sure what their schedule is, but pretty sure they're probably still open, during the September and like late September, October times. And so that was the Shawnee, Kansas, like the Shawneetown 1929 Museum. Now, after that, you're like, dang, girl. You're like, you've been busy. I have been busy. And so let's talk about Belton. Now, I hadn't been to Belton in a very long time, and maybe since 2017, I think 2016, 2017. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like downtown Belton, because I've only kind of been on more the outer skirts where the chain restaurants are, all that, but like off the highway. But oh my gosh, it was such a revelation. So, I went and I looked up the Belton Museum, and it's run by the Belton Historical Society. And so, I was like, okay, they were open kind of like limited hours. I think they're open from like 10 a.m. to 1 or something like that. And so I'm like, I'm in the Northland, so I was booking it on down there. And I've got friends in the Lee Summit area, and that's kind of, on the way a little bit. So I hung out there, and then I went on to the museum. And oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I decided to do so. So I started off, and so because the museum, and now if you're on my Facebook page, you'll see that actually did split this up between the museum and the downtown. The museum is next to another, like a carriage house, the Carrie A. Nation carriage house, and Carrie Nation was a famous, woman who both her husbands died. They were doctors. They both died of alcoholism. So she was very against alcohol. So she would come in and like, take her hatchet and hatchet up bars. And, she kept getting arrested and she kept getting bailed out. And when she died, there was like a carriage. And so the carriage, that her funeral carriage, is in Belton. It's located in Belton, and it has its own kind of dedicated carriage house to it. And there's some other cool stuff that's in there, from the times and everything. And so, um, yeah, I mean, I like it was so much fun. But I started off at the museum, and the staff person there was very knowledgeable. He knew like the history and everything, and we were talking, and he was kind of like telling me how Belton started and everything. And then we walked through. There was like a theater, and it turns out he and his wife like run I think it's called the Main Street Theater, and in Belton, and they do these cute little play, like like The Odd Couple and some of the older plays. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so. And I was like, how, do you guys get a lot of people? He's like, it's actually pretty popular. And I was like, well, if you think about it, like downtown Belton, and if you're an older person, you don't want to drive at night. And look, I'll be 51 in April, and I'm starting to be like, I don't want to drive at night, like, right? And so it's like you're in town, you can just, go, there's restaurants in town, you can go have a meal at a restaurant and then, come do a night at the theater, put on your nice finery and go to the theater and watch a performance. And it was a cute little cozy area. And so that was really cool to kind of learn about that. And then we went next door to the Carrier Nation carriage house and we kind of walked around there. I took pictures. And then I ran into some other people. And that reminds me, I got to make a list. I've got something else to do after this podcast. Then, we ran into some other local people and I talked to them. And then I just kind of walked through downtown Belton and the one thing that surprised me is that they look like they have a pretty good restaurant situation in downtown Belton. Like it is not what I expected it to be. I mean, I knew it would be cozy because a lot of these towns, these Missouri and Kansas towns, the downtowns are actually pretty cozy. All the brick, the architecture, the history. But there's like a brewery downtown. There was a few cafes. There was like a gourmet popcorn shop that I passed. Um, there's like a cute little coffee shop, maybe a couple cute little coffee shops, some vintage, like a vintage store, like just some furniture stores, and just a lot of, I don't know, just I really liked it. I thought, man, this is when I was thinking about it in my head, doing it in my head, like, when I think about these quaint and cozy adventures, I try to think of myself like, if I were here with like a group of friends, go to the museum, then there's a place across the street. We go like, have get something to eat and just keep walking. Maybe pick up some gourmet popcorn, eat the gourmet popcorn, whatever. And then walk and go and walk through all the stores and the boutiques and all of that stuff. And to me, if doing Belton is something where I would go, and again, they have breakfast places too. Like I would get there, like probably I like to get to places around 10 a.m because sometimes if you can eat breakfast there, things don't open until like 10 a.m. So you got there at 7:30, you're done because diner situations usually done by 8:15. And then you're like, okay, what do we do now? We just kind of walk around until something's open. Like, what do we do? So I'm more like try to catch a lunch. So I try to get there around 9:30, 10 a.m., that kind of thing. So I would definitely go there at 10 a.m. You go through all the shops first, if I wanted to do it that way, if I had a hearty breakfast then go to the museums and then maybe get something to eat on my way out of town or something like that. But that's kind of how I approach things. But if when I'm with a group of people it's a little bit different because you got different things going on. But like by myself or with one other person, I try to eat before I come and then have lunch there after I've kind of explored or do an early dinner. That's just kind of like what my preference is. Definitely recommend it though. And again, Belton's not very far away from Lee Summit. And so, if you're someone who's in Lee Summit, you're like, man, I'm just like, I love Lee Summit because that's another place that's got a cute little downtown. But I want something like a little bit different, a little bit slower pace than definitely going to Belton and walking around and, just like, and there's parking and everything. But it started to bustle. It started to pick up around lunchtime. So I went ahead and left because more cars were coming in. But it just felt like a nice it's like a nice little vacation, nice little vacation. And so I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to go this weekend. I'm not quite sure. I'm going back and forth between, staying up north and maybe like heading to Johnson County. I'm on a very tight kind of schedule as far as certain things. So it might be something where I do I might stay up north this time. But yeah, I mean, I started making a list of places that I want to explore, like the historical societies that I want to explore. Like I've been to Blue Springs. I went to their downtown a couple years ago, but I haven't been to their museums yet, so that's definitely on my list. Um, Definitely looking at. I've been to the Weston Museum, so I'm not like that's not on the list for that because I've already been there, and I think their museum's dark until April. But I've been looking at St. Joe because I haven't been to St. Joe's and like St. Joe's, I've not been to St. Joe in years. Like not saying, I mean, I stopped by like for gas, but I'm talking about to sit down, eat in a restaurant, walk around. I have not done that in a very long time. So that's on my list, not for this weekend because this weekend's going to be pretty packed, but it's definitely on my list for when farmers market season starts because, that's a farmers market I have not been to. So that's what I've really been balancing. Like, okay, some of these, like, I want to go to Pittsburgh, Kansas, because I haven't been in years and I want to see their farmers market. So I'm going to pick a time when the farmers market is open and I can go. Same with Fort Scott, right? Now those are further, those are kind of like that's kind of like, those are like real trips. And I might have to do like, I've thought about doing like maybe an overnight or something like that, like a Friday overnight, and take some time off and run there, like, do a half day on Friday and then go down there and spend some time there and go to the farmers market and explore it that way. Because again, there's a lot of history down there as well. So I've just been looking at places and I definitely want to check out Columbia, Missouri this summer when the college kids kind of like, go do their thing and then I can kind of, check out, see what's going on there. Um, and then like there's Springfield that I want to check out. And I haven't been to St. Louis in a few years, so I'm looking at that place. But I probably will take a little break because I'm going to be going to Vermont this summer. So I'm trying to kind of get some things in before I kind of keep it to a more of a like a local thing as far as to spend the night trips. And so yeah, that I mean this is the lifestyle. This is the Quaint and Cozy KC lifestyle. I've had a couple of people, more people are asking me about like, hey, how do I get started doing this? And I always say, like I always say, what do you like to do? I started on this journey because what got me started besides my mom like getting on me about being a snob about being back in Kansas City, but also what do I like to do? And I just started pursuing that. I like farmers markets, I like tea shops, I like antique shops, although it's really hard for me not to try to buy something. But I like to go in and look, maybe take a couple of pictures, like that kind of thing, just get a vibe. I like to do that, those kind of things. I like to go listen to live music in small venues. Like, sometimes, some really cool, quaint and cozy things to do, are it's like go to a coffee shop and when they're going to have a musician there and you kind of sit, get like a little sandwich and, a drink and you just like watch the show, like sit and just relax and watch the show, and so that those are just really easy, quaint and cozy Casey things to do. They're actually, when you think about it, if you look at it on paper, it's like, oh, that's so kind of like, it's like it's so like chill. These are not like high adrenaline activities. Now, some of them can be, but really it's just kind of like a laid back thing. Or even if you're a library person, just going to a different library every week. Or if that's not in your budget, you can just do a new library a month. Again, you gotta whatever works in your budget. I know people look at me like, oh man, you get to go to all these places and whatever. Because I'm in a station in a place in my life where I can do that. Like 10, 15 years ago, it would have been a different story. So do what you can do. Don't worry about, I know like with TikTok, and now I'm getting to like my little like aunt rant, my auntie rant, but with TikTok and Instagram and all those social media, which I love social media, but also it can make people feel like you're less than because you're not doing what the influencer are doing or what these other people are doing cool things. You can do cool things too. Just do them at your own pace and do them in your own way. So let's see. Do I have anything else? I mean, I mean, the weather's warming up. I mean, I say that as it's like, it was a little cold today, but like, but we're all gonna be out here. There's gonna be all kinds of free concerts in the park. There's going to be all kinds of just really cool things going on, and some of them will be really big and peoply, but some of them won't be. They'll be like a moderate. You can kind of like I like the symphony in the park. A lot of people come, but there's always it seems to be some space, so you just bring your own lawn chair and just kind of like sit and enjoy the music. And I went to that last year and I loved it. I had so much fun. I was only able to go to one concert because I had a lot of stuff going on. And again, that's okay. I wasn't able to make all of them, but just kind of like I definitely, if you're not a Facebook person, and I know Facebook can be really hard on people, but I do a lot of Facebook just for a lot of the events. And so I can get the event notifications and also, there's Eventbrite, there's other ways to get like there's like local apps and like local online magazines and newspapers that will always tell you about events. So you just have to kind of keep your eye open. Also, always be looking at the library. Your public library has a lot of events going on you might not know about. Also, your local community center has a lot of events that you might not know about. So again, get on their mailing list. I know you're like, oh my gosh, my email is already being blown up or whatever, but get on there and maybe get rid of some of the things you're not doing, right? Unsubscribe to some of the things that you're not even paying attention to that you subscribed to like 15 years ago. You're like, why am I still getting this about like this random kind of thing. I haven't really been interested in that in years. So, just balance it out by getting rid of the other things that you're not reading. So again, I've been on my soapbox a lot during this podcast. I can't help it though. I get so geeked up about all the quaint and cozy things that there are to do in Kansas City, and I'm doing a lot of house stuff too. I'm kind of doing what a lot of people are doing right now. I'm decluttering, and I am kind of discovering new things that I have. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my basement. So some of the stuff I'm keeping because I forgot I had it and I was actually looking for, I'm like, oh, I need to buy a new one. I'm like, no, I don't. I have it here. So I highly recommend you going through your stuff before you go and buy all these new things that you're like, because you'll discover that you actually have three of the same thing. That can happen. That has happened to me a couple of times. And so that's kind of like my ongoing house project. So I have my quaint and cozy life style outside of my house, but then I have that in my house where I'm like, okay, let's declutter this and let's kind of, get the donation things ready. Let's, put out I always ask my friends first, do you need this? And then I kind of go through like, and I'll donate it to like more of a local charity. I prefer to do that. And so that's my house project is like my basement right now, getting because I have 7 shelves up there. And when I was looking at them, I was like, honestly, I probably only need 4 shelves. For real, I only need 4 shelves. The rest of the stuff is extra stuff that needs to be put someplace else. And so having that realization made me go, oh, wow, I'm freeing up space because I'm actually going to do like a lounge in my basement. And like some kind of like sitting, kind of like a sitting lounge, and kind of more for like like an early fall situation. I don't think I'm gonna have it done by the time because it gets hot down there, even the air, 'cause it can kind of get hot and stuffy down there. But um, I want to have that kind of lounge area for people, but also for myself, because sometimes you just want to kind of sit and listen to your playlists or, watch Netflix on your tablet and just like vibe. And, I've got like plenty of places up, in my house for that, but sometimes you just want a designated relaxation space where you don't really do anything, where I'm not gonna, sit and try to write something or podcast from down there, but just really kind of, just a place to kind of lounge. And so in order to do that, I've got to dismantle some things. And so that's my house project. And for this summer is like my basement. Okay, so you guys have been great, and I will talk to you soon. And please, you can follow me on Quaint and Cozy KC on Instagram. I'm more active on Facebook, and I'm also on TikTok for however long. This time they decided to keep it up, but I do put my adventures on there on, slideshows of my adventure. I had someone ask about video, and I will post certain videos up there, but I just really prefer the slideshow because I just kind of like, I don't know, that's just like my thing. I am trying to get better. I do have a couple of more videos up on my Quaint and Cozy Casey where I'm talking to people, but with everything going on, I'm always like, I'm just gonna do that later. I'm just gonna do that later. And then when I'm exploring, I get so into the exploring, I forget to like, turn on the camera and say, "Hey, this is where I'm at." And again, it's on my list. I want to get better at doing that because I want to kind of, I want people to kind of see me like, in real time, a little bit, right? But like just so you can kind of be like, "Oh, hey, maybe I can, catch this place, check out this museum, like later in the day," because I do all my stuff in the morning. I'm usually out of my play, like wherever I'm at. I'm usually gone by like 1 or 2 p.m. So I could post it like after that. So, anyways, you guys have been great. Thank you so much for following me and all of your support. It really does mean a lot. Take care, everyone, and I will talk to you soon.